In commemoration of the 2024 Workers' Day celebration, the federal government has approved a pay increase of between 25% and 35% for civil servants on the remaining 6 consolidated salary structures. A statement signed by the head of press, National Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission, Emmanuel Njoku, said the increases took effect from January 1, 2024. More so, the Minister of Interior, Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, in a statement by the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Interior, Aishetu Ndayaku, issued on Tuesday in Abuja, reiterated the need for excellence, efficiency, and equity in all spheres of labor, reaffirming President Bola Tinubu's administration's commitment to foster a culture of innovation, productivity, and inclusivity in the workplace. However, amid the biting inflation in Nigeria and the recent fuel scarcity currently crippling economic activities, Nigerian workers are not smiling at the moment. Most of the demands made by labor union leaders for an upward review of workers' salaries are yet to be fulfilled amid promises by the present government. Joining us now in celebration of Workers' Day in Nigeria as we review the state of Nigerian workers, their welfare, and other basic needs is Adejumo Ismail, PRO, NLC, Lagos State, while Comrade Isa Aremu, the Director General of the Michael Emodu Institute of National Labor Studies in Ilorin, Kwara State, will be joining us as the discussion progresses. Good morning, Comrade Adejumo.
Good morning.
Happy Workers' Day to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning for having me on Arise TV this morning.
Yes.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, it's Workers' Day.
Yes.
Now, can you tell us about the significance and then explain to us why Labour is rejecting President Tinubu's 35% for the remaining 6 consolidated salary structures and 28% for pensioners within that same bracket? I would have thought that Labour should be happy that after all the federal government had increased salaries for tertiary sector workers and also for the health sector. Is it not better to just take what has been given while waiting for the 37-man tripartite committee to submit its recommendations? But first, talk to us about the significance of this day. Are you excited?
Thank you very much. Globally, today is a special day. It's a unique day for all workers all over the world. And Nigeria and Lagos here we are is not an exception. We are most happy despite all the economic hardship going on in this country at the moment. We are feeling the brunt of the fuel scarcity and so many other economic situation that has crippled, the life of an average workers. Because as we speak now, I must confess to you, we are happy with this announcement, although that is not the minimum wage. It's just an adjustment to bring about, to reduce the disparity in the categories of salary scale that we have in Nigeria. You have mentioned it earlier on that that of the medical and tertiary institutions have been resolved, and that is why they are not included. This one is the worst of all the category of the salary scale we have. So people are living in penury. So people purchasing power is very, very low. They are, in fact, most workers are on a life support. I must confess to you that most category of workers in the public service are living on very irredeemable loans. And that is the worst of the matter at the moment. And with this little adjustment, it started from President Muhammadu Buhari. We have to commend him too, when he set up the presidential committee for the review of the salary structure in a way and manner to bring about a kind of equality. Although that won't be equal because of productivity and the job schedule, but at least all of us are going to the same market. And that was the report that came to him that led to the peculiarity allowance of 40% that was signed last year towards the end of his administration. And that gave a kind of relief. Now with this 35%, we're happy. We take it in good faith, and that is not the minimum wage. As our leader have rightly said, it's just to bring us at par with our contemporary, so that we are going to the same market, we will not be feel cheated, and all of us can have at least a sense of belonging, and as a worker, will be more productive. As for the significance of today, it's very, very important that a day like this, so many workers in the past have struggled due to dehumanization, casualization, and so many other workplace hardship that has really, led to a series of struggle that now give us what we have as 8 hours work approval for both public and private workers. And these people who have laid down their life in this struggle, they are the martyrs. We have to celebrate them. This particular day is a day to reflect and do a kind of retrospect on the journey so far. Where are we coming from? Where are we? And where are we going as a worker? We appreciate the government of Nigeria of today, coming to terms with the economic hardship, that there is the need to assist the downtrodden, the people who are below the poverty line. People are living with multi-dimensional poverty. As a worker, you cannot proud of a decent living. So this is very, very absurd, and we thank the government of today under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to at least take this direction while we are waiting hopefully, because he campaigned on a renewed hope that he will not let us down. So we are hoping that after the tripartite committee might have concluded with the labor leadership, then we should be having a living wage, not even a minimum wage. That's the greatest expectation of most Nigerians and the workers.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Comrade Adejumo, and happy Workers' Day.
Thank you.
Where are we on the conversation with the minimum wage? Because we recall that last year when the President announced the removal of fuel subsidy, part of his administration's efforts to cushion the effect was to review, to have conversations with Nigeria Labour Congress and the TUC and organized labor with regards to a review of the minimum wage. It's 5 years post the last review in 2019. So where are we now? Because you talk about conversations are still ongoing. Any updates? Any progress being made?
Thank you very much. As you have really said, there are a lot of issues that surround minimum wage because it's a matter of law. It's a legislation, and it has to pass through the normal process before it becomes implemented. The last time was 5 years ago. The last minimum wage is due for review this April. And government have deemed it fit that they will not wait until the last day before they start the process of negotiation. We know all the economic indices that have been considered, put into consideration to determine the minimum wage. But one thing is sure, that the tripartite committee they've concluded the zonal public hearing. In Lagos, they came for the Southwest here in Lagos at the Blue Roof. We were there. A lot of memos were submitted. There are a lot of positions there and there. But the final seal on it will be the memorandum of understanding, the kind of collective bargaining agreement between the government and the labor leader, vis-a-vis the private sectors and the governor forum representative. All of them will be party to it because they must implement it. Minimum wage is a universal law, and no state can pronounce a minimum wage. It's an aberration.
So
because what happened in Edo State is just a kind of distraction to us, because they are trying to spike the government to know where they are going. But from the feelers we are getting, we believe strongly that the government is very, very passionate and consider all the indices that is on ground, because what we propose now, both NLC and TUC, is 615,000 as a benchmark to survive as a worker in Nigeria. To pay for a rent that is not affordable, you have to pay for high cost of goods and services, you have to take care of your students' school fees, you have to do some other transportation to and from offices. And we thank the governor of Lagos, who has magnanimously yielded to our demand that all the transport system in Lagos, intervention in terms of BRT, he has listened to that, and we commend him. But for the federal government, we want them to redeem their pledge on the CNG buses that they promise to roll out, and all other issues that will give us happiness.
I'm sorry, has Labour tried to do like a scenario planning analysis on inflation? You said 615,000 for the least worker.
Yeah. That is the subject of negotiation. That is the proposal for negotiation.
How realistic is that for the least worker? You say minimum wage. You know, the money will be going up as you are going higher in level.
Yes.
So that means maybe a level 16 will be earning millions of 615,000 for the least worker.
That is what is obtainable now in
How
Nigeria.
did you arrive at that number?
We have indices.
Well, yeah.
We consider the housing need of an average worker that will
For
have
the least
no,
minimum.
I'm coming. An average worker who will have at least, according to the Federal Civil Service Law, must have at least no more than 4 children. With wife, that is 6 family. So in a family of 6, you must have at least 2 or 3 bedroom flats comfortably. And to take 2 bedroom in Lagos,
You have not seen civil servants that have 12 children.
I'm just giving a baseline, a benchmark for what is expected of us.
But
Some of us,
but
no,
not all workers live in Lagos. You can't compare Lagos standard with the standard of Ilesha, for instance. Ekiti.
Bayelsa.
Civil servant, what's it called? Bedroom flat. Even in Ogun here,
Yes.
bedroom flat, 2 bedroom flat in Ogun here is less than 200,000 in a year in Idogbolu.
Okay.
So a federal worker that is there, you will say 615,000 again minimum wage. So that's for the base level. No? So if it's on a higher level, that means it's earning millions of naira. Don't you think inflation will come to the market? I mean, how do you people arrive at? That's why I'm asking. What's your empirical study?
Thank you very much. I'm just giving the indices, the parameters that led to that proposal of 615. If you look
Don't
at
use Lagos as a basis, because
no,
Lagos is different from
Lagos is
other
the
parts.
model for anything in Nigeria.
It's not
so,
a model.
and
It
if
doesn't
we are,
apply
that is
to
why
every part
most
of
of
Nigeria.
the minimum wage negotiation have been domesticated at the various states, because we know their financial viability are quite different.
Are you saying that viability can be for Lagos, that's 615,000, but for other states it can
It's
be
obtainable in
different?
Lagos. Yes, Lagos.
But other states can be different.
Even Abuja.
But other states can be different.
Of course, but it is a matter of law. Once the federal government now agree, we are not saying that is the 615 or no go area. It is subject to negotiation. There must be a middle line.
What
What has happened,
Yes.
Comrade Adejumo,
Yes,
is that tripartite committee
Yes, sir.
has organized zonal hearings.
Yes, from this.
Labour is part of that
Yes.
committee. Government is part of it. Private tech sector is part of it. I think we should await the outcome of the negotiation. It's not for Labour to jump ahead and say it is 615. Come and negotiate with
we
us.
must give our own proposal.
Yes. Your recommendations within the context of that tripartite committee. Let us await the outcome.
Okay.
Before you go and
It
give
will also
people
affect the
high expectations.
The same thing will also
Yes,
applicable
with
to
private sector, we pay
615,000 for gate man.
with the exchange rate that we
the
have in the
exchange
country.
And that is what-
615.
Anyway, I understand.
we are in this country together.
I understand the comrade Aremu has now joined us. Comrade, good morning. Thank you for joining us on the morning show. Hello, comrade.
Thank you, Comrade Abati. I can call you Comrade Abati too.
I'm now one of the comrades. Okay, very good.
If you live on minimum wage and your other comrades there, I want to say Happy May Day to all of you. Rufai.
Thank you.
And
I hear 615,000 is coming, sir. I hear 615,000 is coming.
That has not been decided.
well, that will be good news. I'm happy that Rufai, that will be quite good. You know, I'm also a DG that lives on minimum wage. Any wage increase will be useful for me.
Yeah. Well, we're all workers. But let's talk about May Day. I read your piece that you wrote, to mark this occasion, from the history to how Nigerian governments have treated the minimum wage question and your expectations. This is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's first May Day outing since he took over power. And in his renewed hope agenda, I'm taking from your piece now, I'm trying to remember some of the points you made. In the renewed hope agenda, he promised that workers will be, they will be on their way to paradise under his administration. And yet, under this administration, in less than 1 year, we have had 9 industrial actions, 9 strikes by workers. Are you still very optimistic that President Tinubu has lived up to that promise? After all, he has just announced 35% salary increase for certain categories of workers in the federal service, and also 20% increase for pensioners. Do you think that this is something, along the line of renewed hope and that indeed he will keep his promise of increasing national minimum wage. Now, the comrade in the studio here has said 615,000 naira as minimum wage. Well, I hope that's realistic. Comrade Aremu, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Abati. I think this year's May Day assumes special importance, as I pointed out in my reflection. First is the first one under this administration, ably led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Of course, it's also the one we are organizing on the eve of the 25th anniversary of uninterrupted democratic dispensation. I think for us in the labor movement, and for my comrades who are still very active in the labor movement, we don't take democracy for granted. We're also marking 43rd anniversary, put it that way, of the May Day, because it started in 1981 as a national minimum wage, even though in 1980, there was once in Nigeria in which we had democratic politics based on ideology. So it was actually the PRP government of the late Abubakar Aremu, as well as Balarabe Musa in Kano, that first declared, May Day in Kano and Kaduna, respectively. That time, the pioneer president of NLC, Alhaji Hassan Sumonu, was the president of NLC, still very well alive. So because MPN government under the late President Shehu Shagari didn't want to be, to be outperformed, President Shehu Shagari the following year declared May Day as a national public holiday to celebrate dignity of labor. So if you go on this memory lane, you know that for almost 4 decades now we have been marking May Days. The 2 occasions that we couldn't mark May Day, and maybe the 3rd occasion, the first 2 occasions was 1988 as well as 1995, when the military government then of IBB and Abacha dissolved Nigeria Labour Congress, and of course under COVID. So otherwise, May Day, we can say, is a fallout of democratic process. And for organized labor and all the stakeholders in labor market, democracy would need total commitment, regardless of shortcomings of democracy. It's still the best form of government that allows for freedom of association, freedom of assembly. What we went through, and I think it's important that we put this in context, that today we're also celebrating democratic process that guarantees human rights, trade union rights, also democracy in the workplace. But back to the issue of Renew Hope agenda, I think this president, as a candidate, made the pledge to say that he was committed to review of minimum wage. Not only that, he promised living wage, for the working people. And to a large extent, we can say that the administration has been walking the talk. Don't also forget that after the removal of subsidy, I think it was clear that prices went up, inflation went here, I think about 3% now. Then the administration engaged with organized labor. And on the 2nd of October, both Labour and the federal government had this comprehensive 15-point agreement. Top on it was Presidential Wage Award. Initially 25,000, but with the engagement in Labour, it was raised to 35,000. And this government has kept to that agreement. For the past 6 months, workers in the federal employment have been paid. Not only that, the president urged state governors to try and emulate and also complement, his effort to improve the pay of the working people. President Bola Ahmed is also very clear that paying workers very well is smart economics, because the only way you can improve on purchasing power, of the people is to pay them wages as I went due, and the worker salaries are meant to buy goods, which are also produced by the rich sector of the economy. So it's what you pay workers that they can buy, and most states, they live on, they have civil servants. So the way to turn the economy around is to pay them very well. Then secondly, there was a promise of the new minimum wage, and early this year, I think January 30th or so, if I can remember, the National Minimum Wage Committee was inaugurated. The most enlarged, inclusive minimum wage committee made up of employers of labor in private sector, NECA. We have organized labor represented by NLC, TUC. Of course, you also have the state governors, 6 of them, who are now, and negotiation is on, So, and I think I listened to you, Dr. Abati. Nothing will be announced as the new minimum wage without being negotiated. Of course, I listened to my comrade at the studio. That's the proposal and the demand of the working people. And you also know the the level of inflation in the country, the cost of living. So I've known that in my mind that's the proposal. But proposal is not a substitute for what will become an agreement. It has to be negotiated, and a negotiation is going on. And we are very rich in this tradition. This is the 6th national minimum wage that we are negotiating. And let me quickly wrap up on this note, that national minimum wage is the least below which a worker will be paid. Is the least, is the lowest paid, and is the one that is legally backed up by law. It's not the same thing as living wage. Is the minimum below which government at the federal level, state government, private sector will not pay. So it's not my comrade who's at the studio, and I listen to him partly. It's also, I think the passion is more for living wage. We can come through different sectoral discussions, sectoral negotiation, and I think we also had this morning that the National Wages and Salary Commission has approved 25 to 35% for police, for uniform agencies workers, because they are also workers in uniform. Those ones will always continue, but they are not substitute for the minimum wage. But minimum wage is legally permissible, and the current rate is 30,000, which moved from 18,000 before. Now we have to look at what is possible within the reality of the economy. So we talk of affordability, sustainability, minimum wage. We also want to maintain minimum employment. So it doesn't make sense that you are paying minimum wage and then the few jobs disappear, because the private sector, they don't print money. They can only pay from what they have produced, what they have sold. But again, these are products of negotiation. So to a larger extent, to answer your question, Dr. Abati, the labor management relation has been so much challenged, with the economic reforms that have been put in place. But the framework for handling industrial relation is in place. And I think, although you mentioned 9 national strikes, I think I can say 4. 4 strikes, and they are normal. In a democracy, there should be a policy contestation. And organized labor is doing very well. But after the contestation, there will be accommodation. And that's why after contending with government, labor reached that agreement on October 2nd, 15-point agreement. Now the challenge is, how do we implement those agreements in full? Don't also forget there was a promise of CNG buses, and I think for me that's even more qualitatively important. Because what workers spend their money on is transportation, very prohibitive. So if you have public transport, that can minimize the cost.
All right.
So maybe what we need to look at, how to realize the full implementation of the agreement.
All right, thank you very much, Comrade Aremu. And from what I hear from yourself and Comrade Ismail, it almost seems as if, I've heard Comrade Ismail talk about, thanking the administration, and you yourself have come out to say that it looks like things are moving positively, if I were right. In a few days, this administration will be celebrating 1 year in office, and it might be a good time to then evaluate, at least in terms of the tenure so far, especially on the Nigerian worker. I say this because it almost seems as if in the early days we saw organized labor come out a lot, especially when policies were introduced. After the recent electricity hike, we didn't quite see a lot of that agitation as we saw in terms of the strength of the protests. How well do you think this administration has done so far, particularly with regards to the welfare of the Nigerian worker? I'll start with you, Comrade Aremu, and then I'll come to you, Comrade Adejumo. And perhaps in speaking, you might want to give some recommendations as well.
Yes, I think I've already indicated the issue of wage award. I also know that there was suspension of value-added tax, for 6 months to be able to ease business, which also impact on employment, especially for those who are in the private sector. I've also draw your attention to the fact that there was commitment to provide CNG buses, but it's not over until those buses are rolled out, because that will go a long way to really solve the hardship of the working people. So to that extent, I think there's a significant process. But you also know that the policies or the reforms that have been put in place have also impacted seriously on the level of prices in the country. I mean, removal of subsidy. First, the cost of transport has gone up, which has impacted on food inflation, in general, with the working people live on. So even when you give wage award, you also know that inflation has really impacted considerably. And that's why I think everybody eagerly awaits what will come out of this negotiation on the issue of wages, as the case may be. But my quick take on this will be that 1 year in office of the president, I think it's important for labor and government to reset in a way that we know reforms are inevitable. We can't be business as usual. For us to reposition the economy, we need to create more jobs. We need to, make resources available to invest in infrastructure. But in carrying out reforms, we need to also be strategic. We need to space reform. As they normally say, we need just transition. And you don't carry out policies almost at the same time. As you said, you increase price of fuel, bits of subsidy. Now we have hike in electricity tariff, and it's not that salaries are moving at the same pace. So I think it's significant. I mean, it's important to reset, to think of what I try to say, we need to reform the reform. And to do so means that strategic organizations like labor, employers of labor, must be carried along, not only for them to be contesting with policy after it has been done, but they should be part of policy formulation process. And President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I know, is committed to inclusion. He has just set up a presidential economic advisory council, very enlarged one, made up of business people, bankers. But my suggestion here is that it should be inclusive of working people, because labor is the most important factor of development. People talk of wealth of humans. So instead of putting those who are possibly have conflict of interest, it's better you put organized labor who in any case, they are the one who produce, who will be able to get bought to your vision. And it's better they're on the table, for policy formulation as well as policy implementation. And with that one, from day one, they can factor the welfare of their members, and government will be able to know what will be of benefit, because well-motivated workforce will be productive and will be able to complement government in its reform agenda.
All right, well, thank you, Comrade Issa Aremu. We'll come back to this conversation. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, I'll ask you, Comrade Adejumo Ismail, for your own take on the same question. It's still the morning show here on Arise News. We'll be back after this break. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We still have our guests in studio, Comrade Adejumo Ismail, PRO NLC Lagos State, and Comrade Issa Aremu, the Director General of Michael Imodu Institute of National Labour Studies in Ilorin, Kwara State. Look at today being Workers' Day, International Workers' Day, and May Day here in Nigeria as well, and just looking at the conditions of workers, the minimum wage conversation, living wage conversation, and the general welfare of workers here in Nigeria. Comrade Adejumo Ismail, I'd asked the question before the break. In terms of your review, if I shall put it that way, of the Tinubu administration as we approach 1 year in office, and in particular, this conversation around organized labor, speaking up for the people, and if the steam has run a little lower as the year has progressed. What's your take on his time in office so far?
Thank you very much. At this very critical time in the life of any administration, we know that there will be a time for a feedback. Globally, any new government that comes on board like this, we have a 6 month thereabouts as his honeymoon period to do a sort of policy test running. So most of the policy of this current administration that have been put into implementation now at this stage, it's time for stock taking to reflect and see how impactful, positively or negatively, some of these policies has been. Be that as it may, we believe that with the spirit, the can-do spirit of the Mr. President, his body language, that whatever it takes to bring power to Nigeria, he will do it. That is a promise, is a bond. We hold it seriously, and we are counting down. We want him to do it with all whatever means that he has promised. These are the basic elements. These are the critical sector that can drive the economy. In the area of food security, we want the president, based on the existing data that goes with this, a lot of insecurity in the country, to put more effort in securing Nigerian people, most especially up north and down the south now, so that productivity in the agricultural sector that can bring down the price of foods and commodity will be in place. So this time around, we have seen the policy, the monetary policy of the government, we have seen the fiscal policy, we have seen the reform in the oil sector, and so many other critical sectors. So now, it is time for government to reflect and do a kind of dissecting of the whole policy framework and set a new roadmap so that most of this policy can really be impactful to the life of our Nigerians. Because if you look at the Naira now, the Naira has competed favorably with dollar in recent time now because of some measures, but it has not really reflected in the market. People are still telling us the dollar has not entered the market. Most of their purchase now, they've not exhausted them, so they are still selling at a exorbitant price. So we have a lot of a plethora of challenges, and we know this does not start under his administration, to be honest and be frank. But we are challenging the government as a labor leader, just like our leader, our veteran Commissioner Aremu have said. The labor leader are not just to come and contest the policy. We are to be part of the policy formulation and implementation, because this year theme for celebration is predicated on people's first. People's first. People should be the fulcrum, the centerpiece of any policy framework, so that they will key in, they will buy in, and the people will know if it is painful that yes, this is why we have to do this sacrifice. If it is painful,
the Naira is competing favorably. No, that's not fall today to the.
There will be fall up and down. That is normal because of the demand and all the indices that will lead to rise and fall of dollar. We know we are not producing enough.
The Nigeria, you said it was competing favorably, and you are saying they are telling you.
Yes.
They are saying there will be.
Yes, it has a time that it has really moved to a reasonable level compared to when it jumped astronomically to close to 2000. You understand what I'm saying now? So there is a departure from that. So it seems that some of the policy, monetary policy of the government might be having impact in reducing that. That is our own view. But that is not only the sector, because we have other sectors, like the agricultural sector, I've just said it now. That is where the issue of food security will be guaranteed. We are particular about the security of the farmers in the rural areas. How can they be secure to do their farming and bring the produce to the urban center so that people can have greater happiness for the greater number? So the government of today, we cannot give a verdict now until after this celebration and maybe the announcement of the expected living wage vis-a-vis other policy framework that will come in, that we can now say, okay, yes, this government have really stand to fulfill all their electoral promises and that will impactful to Nigerians. Anyway. So, but for now, we are very, very, but we thank the government. Let us be honest that if a government is listening to the yearnings and aspirations of the people, especially people who have been complaining about a non-living wage, people who are living in penury, and the government has been doing something gradually to ameliorate this suffering, definitely we will be giving them a benefit of doubt until when they convince us otherwise that maybe they are not listening. So that is our take for now.
But anyway, the currency has really taken a beating. This was not where the currency was when the administration got it.
Yes, we know that for caution.
And as we speak, we are defending the currency And that's why, you're seeing all of this, so which we're expending our resources. I want to talk to you about something we don't talk about, which is, number one, will be about welfare where you work. Because also part of the theme of this International Labour Day, also centers around workplace hazards. I don't know where you work, sir, but what are the things that you have where you work? And the welfare, because we see very shambolic office spaces, we see I don't even know what your health insurance is now as you work. Do you have a life insurance policy? Are all of this put together in, benefits? I mean, if a worker drops down and dies today, what becomes of their family? Take for instance, if you have a machine injury where your hands are cut off, what becomes of you? I mean, let's talk about things like that, because it's not just only about the wage, but also it's about the welfare, the health insurance. I want Comrade too to, talk about that, because Nigeria's work system is very, very shambolic.
Yeah.
It's as good as having nothing as regards welfare in place.
Yeah, as for the workplace safety, is very, very sacrosanct, and it's one of the focal points we are presenting today to Mr. Governor, that there must be an enforcement, because there is a law on workplace safety and welfare of workers. So part of the demand we are making today is that the Lagos State government should partner in collaboration with the labor centers, both NLC and TUC, to ensure, maybe through Safety Commission, that there is a full enforcement of safety in workplace in Lagos and in Nigeria. But in Lagos, where I speak for, is more concerned. That is why I'm talking, because the governor seems more to be determined to ensure that people, if you go around Alausa now and some of the government places in establishments in Lagos, they are under serious renovation to bring them in terms with international best practices.
Fire hydrants in the office?
Yes, I'm giving you an instance. There are shortcomings. Yes, there are some
fire blankets.
We have fire extinguishers. We have some fire safety and
you have fire blankets.
Fire blankets in some places you don't have, but in some government offices you will see them because the government is not just to provide welfare. They are also to ensure there is an enabling environment, not only in the public sector, even in the private sector. That some people in the private sector are dehumanizing our workers, the workers, in terms of casualization and some other things. So we in Lagos State Labour Movement, we are particular and concerned, working with the government of the state and all stakeholders to ensure that there is no oppression and intimidation of workers in the workplace. There is safety and conducive work environment and some other measures that will bring about dignity in labor. So as for the welfareism, we also concerned about housing. I mentioned it. We proposed to the Mr. Governor that we want a low-cost housing in Lagos.
Do you have any
gone are the days in the times of Babaja Konde and all the former leaders, late Shagari. They still have their estate. We are employing the governor of Lagos to immortalize and institutionalize his own name. Maybe after he might have left that, we have some low-cost housing. So that it will be for the low-income earners, because the one we have presently is not too affordable. It's not affordable for some categories of workers, except those who are cutting corners, which we are not part of. But we want to say, okay, as a genuine worker who earn your legitimate income, should be able to at least afford a 2-bedroom or a room self-contained in a decent environment where you can live, and that will give you impetus to be more productive. Because if you are battling with the problem of accommodation, problem of transportation, problem of feeding and all this, it is already killing. That is why I was said it earlier on that most workers at this moment are on a life support. Something urgent must be done to ameliorate the suffering. We thank the governor of Lagos. He has been doing some food palliatives, which has been distributed to some categories in the state to also cushion the effect of the hardship. So also the 25% reduction on BRT buses and other measures. These are the kind of things that we should be encourage our leaders to do. Look at Ogun State. Why can Ogun State be paying 10,000 as wage award? If your state can pay 25,000, and what?
So it's paying 10,000?
Wage award, that is what they are paying. In Lagos, we are paying full 35,000 as recommended by the federal government. So that's why Lagos is a model. Okay. And we are proud to be in Lagos to set the pace for others to follow.
Thank you so much. We would like to come to you, Comrade Aremu. I mean, let's talk about workplace safety and things like that. I mean, there are many government establishments where, it's like when I was asking my brother here, my comrade here, it's not all of them that have fire extinguishers, sprinklers. I'm not even sure they have fire drills. I'm not even sure most workers even know how to use what is it called, a fire extinguisher as we speak. Can they even do mouth-to-mouth resuscitation? Can they even do CPR? I mean, a lot if you call like 100 workers here, maybe only 1 or 2 of them can be able to do. So all these hazards and safety in the workplace, can we talk about them too?
Absolutely. I think, Rufai, is a very good point you raise. Well, I think it's only a condition that makes crayfish bend, as they say. We're in a market economy in which when you go to the market, it's about what you have. Before you can buy tomato, you can buy gari, and that explains the fact that the fixation about wage issue is very real. And of course, you're also looking at the context of inflation and coal. So you can see that the struggle of the workers are mostly on the wage issue. But I agree with you, there are non-wage issues that seriously impact on the welfare of the workers. And as Comrade Adejumo pointed out, you talk of transportation, you talk of housing, and now you are talking of workplace safety. In fact, there are statistics that show that you won't believe it, that people possibly die more at work than in wards, globally, annually. You can Google it. Millions of workers worldwide, not just in Nigeria, die because of excessive work stress, poor safety conditions, lack of exit in case of any accident or in any panic. And as you said, at times you have fire incidents in which many workers die in large numbers. So I think it's important that we use today to reflect on the general welfare of the workers that go beyond the issue of wages. Even when you talk of salary, we are talking of those who are at work now. What of life after work? There are still many pensioners, some of them who have not been paid. There are some who are paid below minimum wage. So once you retire, you earn less than what you are earning. I mean, that's easy way for many workers to die after retirement. Those are the things that we need to reflect upon. And I know on the issue of occupational health and safety, in fact, on the 29th, which is just the day before yesterday, or the day for International Day on addressing the issue of safety in the workplace, the Ministry of Labour has been championing this cause. And I know there was a time the Minister of State for Labour, Dr. Nkiru, had to go to Lagos to even shut down some factories, in which many workers are dying. They have no places to ease themselves in the workplace. Some of them sleep at work because they couldn't, find a way back to home because of low pay. And some of them are run by expatriate companies, So in summary, I think the challenge here is that the enormous challenges we have call for partnership between government and labor beyond the dramatized engagement we have been seeing. And that's why both labor and government must really come together, to really engage very well. If you look at our constitution, Rufai, labor is on the exclusive list, which shows that even right from 1963, all the constitution we have, labor has always been on the exclusive, that there is a recognition to know that labor is as important, if not even more important than capital. But what value have you assigned to that? So we need to, mainstream labor now. Even when we discuss about resources, when we talk of oil and gas, we talk of resource control. We always talk of controlling resource, but the greatest resource is your human beings. It doesn't make sense that you train nurses, you build skill of your workers, you can't retain them, you don't take care of them, and they have to leave the country. Some doctors are not secure. Some of them are being kidnapped. Nurses are also not secure, So I think this calls for real partnership between government and labor, and this cannot be done from outside. But I've advised the government on the need to reform the reform, but also my comrades in the labor movement must also rethink their method. We can't be talking on the sideline. We can't be on the margin. If we say labor is important, we must also knock the door insist to be consulted beyond at the decision making, but we are the one wearing the shoes. And you can't do so from our side. We should come out openly. And in our engagement, we must be clear that we are for policy reform, not for other things. I know over the years I've been in this business, labor is not for administration change or regime change, is to reform the workplace for the betterment of the working people. So once we restore this trust, and I think all those issues that we have itemized will definitely be addressed. But if you ask me on the whole, there are a lot of challenges, but I'm excited that we have framework for resolving them. In fact, we talk of 4 strikes that have taken place. What of those places strikes that are not taking place is because labor and government are already engaging. And we shouldn't forget this. We are talking of federation. It's not just federal. State levels. I'm happy to hear that Lagos is paying more than minimum wage, 35. Governor Obaseki Nedo just moved minimum wage from 42, which he has been paying, now to 70. So I think state governor must know that it's in their best interest, as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu cancel them, to motivate their workers the way he's doing, so that we can, the greater resource is your workforce as much as possible. And the government should also realize that they are not just employers of labor, they are the enforcers of labor laws. So you have no more authority to tell expatriate companies, to pay minimum wage when you yourself have not really paid. You haven't protected the workers. Then on the last note, and I think that's my advice to labor, my constituency, please, we must engage with this government to know that the way to go is to grow the real sector of the economy. This financialization of the economy will not deliver. The value of the naira we talk about, we can't rely on portfolio investment. If money just comes in, goes out anyhow, that cannot sustain our GDP. What you need to grow the real sector. So labor-intensive sectors like textiles, pharmaceuticals, we have to bring them back. But you can't do so if there's no electricity. There can't be industrialization without electrification. So first there should be jobs, sustainable jobs, before there will be workers. If there are no workers, there can't be unions. If there are no unions, of course, you can't talk, or even May Day we are celebrating today. So dignity of labor starts with employment. And that one, we can partner with this government very well. President Bola Ahmed is not really concerned. He's talking of digital jobs of in millions. Ministry of Labor just launched a program for 2.5 million jobs. I think we can do more with cooperation, dialogue, rather than the kind of adversary relationship we already have. I think we need solidarity relationship to really reposition the economy for sustainable development.
Okay. Well, 2 quick things. Today is May Day. Yes. And you've given us your time. But I would like you, Comrade Adejumo, to tell us about the program for today, particularly here in Lagos State, where we are. And if you have an idea of what the plan is at the federal level, you also tell us. Comrade Aremu, yes, okay, I double-checked your essay. Yeah, what you actually said was 4 strikes in 9 months of the Tinubu administration. So you clarified that. But of course, there were other industrial actions at the state level, apart from the industrial action by the NLC. So if you take a more general view, there have been more than 4 nationally. But I would like you to address the last point in the last paragraph of your piece about labor education. You are in charge of the Institute of Labor Studies, the Michael Emodu Institute. Now, when you talk about labor education, who needs that labor education? Is it the worker that is perpetually agitating, or the employers of labor, both in government and also the private sector? If you could just, give us an idea of what the Institute does. Is it a narrow concentration, or it's an open exercise? But let me start with Comrade Adejumo, telling us about the program for today.
Thank you very much once again. Here in Lagos, the Center of Excellence and the land of aquatic splendor. We are really very, very excited.
You really have to.
We are happy. We are in high spirits because prior to this time, the governor has been having a very robust engagement with labor leadership across board in Lagos. And it is on that basis that we are included in the policy trust and policy framework of the Lagos State government. And on that note, our colleagues how today at Onikon Stadium, there as we speak now, we have gathered waiting for the Mr. Governor to come and listen to us and our demand, our shoutout of demand for a better living and a better condition of service for workers in Lagos State. For us, we are the one that creates the wealth of this nation, and we should not be shortchanged. We must be given our rightful position, and we must be treated with dignity and respect. And for that reason, we implore other states to take a cue on the methodology adopted by the government of Lagos State. Because oftentimes, you will notice that there is no any industrial disharmony in Lagos, except from the private sector, or some pocket of maybe misunderstanding around some policies, which the governor often switch into action immediately. Before this time, he has been engaging. He will call on the leadership, what is the problem, we discuss, and that is why the theme for this year's celebration is very apt and very, very critical. People's first. A people united can never be defeated. We are united, we are resolute, we are determined to support the government, be more productive, to create a better and prosperous economy for Lagos. So we are very, very happy. We thank God that today is a significant day all over the world. We are not taking exception in this celebration. So kudos to Mr. Governor and all his cabinet for doing fantastically well. I must say this. It's not praise singing. Because if you notice, Lagos is the pace setter. If there is anything that is going wrong in Lagos, it will skyrocket. But in Lagos, they have been trying to carry all the stakeholders along. And on this note, we are very, very happy, and we pray that they will continue in this momentum while other states will take a cue from us. Thank you very much.
Well, Comrade Aremu, labor education.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Abati. I mean, you, whatever numbers you look at about the number of disputes that we've gotten, both at the federal and at the state level, including private sectors, they are very significant. Even those disputes, they are a reflection of our democratic atmosphere. You know, I mean, somebody has argued that, show me a place, any country, where there can be strike, there can be protest by the working people, and I will tell you that it's not a democratic country. So it's part of our right to freedom of association, to organizing, to protest, including organizing legitimate strikes, you know, is enshrined. But where there are no disputes, what you should know, where labor doesn't have to be known only through strikes. Unfortunately, our reality is that labor is known through strike. But where there are no strikes, the reason why we can't see strike there is because negotiation has been going on, you know, collective bargaining is going on. And this is what our institute has been mandated to do, to build capacity for employers of labor, workers, government officials, or now to negotiate, to engage in collective bargaining, social dialogue, and to be able to possibly apprehend disputes, and if disputes are inevitable, how to manage disputes. Don't forget that I also came from textile, which used to be highly labor intensive, very turbulent, crisis prone. But one of the things that helped us to stabilize that sector, you know, was through labor education. And Labor Institute in Ilorin has been very strategic to that. I didn't even know I would come here to come and possibly manage the institute. It has been in existence since 1983. And that institute has been promoting labor education over the years. It's also, the governance structure is also tripartite. It's made up of NECA, employers of labor, it makes up of organized labor, and of course, federal government. That also, and it operates under the Federal Ministry of Labor. And its role has been to promote labor education. I'm happy to hear the story of Lagos. But you also find out is that what promotes industrial harmony there is that organized labor is well informed, government officials are well informed, they've been doing regular training. Some of them have also been coming to our institute for training, and that's what we're doing. But we can do more. You know, but because even if you go on strike, there is methodology of doing strike, endless, you know, total and indefinite strike. It may be okay, but it's not desirable. You know, if there are routes also guiding it, it's only by labor education. You know, so that's exactly what the institute is meant for. And within this year alone, we have impacted on thousands of workers through our education program. We have annual calendar in which we do implants trainings. We also now do academic training because labor is a specialized market. Just like you have capital market, you have labor market. So we realize the need to train workers for diplomats, especially union officials, how to negotiate, how to represent their workers, how to follow the rules. Very well. So we award diploma now for 2-year program in diploma. We also run BSc program in industrial relations. But our real core activities is to do mass workers education program, on social protection, occupational health and safety, as Rufai talked about. We also talk of gender equity, involvement in inclusion in the workplaces. We also educate against violence in the world of work, including gender-based violence. So it's a whole holistic mandate that we have, but we can do more if the institute is well-resourced. In fact, first, the Ministry of Labour must be well-resourced. It's the oldest ministry in Nigeria, but when you look at resource allocation, it's possibly treated with with the kind of the mandate you give in ministry resources allocated is not really significant. And President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is highly committed to job creation. The only ministry that will drive that is Ministry of Labour. If you want to do digital employment, you want to have digital skills for the workforce, then we must be able to finance the Ministry of Labour and put resources in all its agencies that include the National Productivity Center, and National Director of Employment, of course, my institute, which is meant to make sure that the workplace is harmonious and peaceful. If you take United States of America, Department of Labor is a big thing. In spite of the fact that it's a capitalist country, they celebrate capital, but they know that you can't drive American economy without a well-motivated workforce. And most American presidents, they take labor serious. Recently, I saw Joe Biden, joining the auto workers in picketing, to demand for their rights. That tells you the value American government attaches to labor. I also know series of incentives to even divest American, to do divestment from China, to return back home so that jobs can be created for American workers. I think that's the way to go. Job creations, then decent jobs, at the same time, well-motivated and well-trained workforce. Which an institute like mine will be very, very critical. Thank you.
On that note, we'd like to thank you very much, Comrade Isa Aremu, and also Comrade Ismail Adejumo for joining us on this special occasion of Workers' Day.